As you begin to drift into that gentle space between waking and dreaming, we return to the lands between, a place where time itself feels unbound, where ancient ruins crumble in slow silence, and strange beauty clings to every inch of the landscape. Tonight, we'll explore even more forgotten corners of Elden Ring's sprawling world. These are not tales of battle or glory, but quiet curiosities, overlooked details, and hidden truths, all ready to guide you softly into sleep. Let's begin our journey beneath the roots, in deep root depths, a haunting twilight-lit realm that rests far below Lindell. This vast underground area, filled with glowing trees and ghostly warriors, is not just another forgotten ruin. It was once a sacred space connected to Godwyn the Golden. The twisted corpses and golden sap seeping from the roots hint at a secret history. This is where death was first betrayed. The golden leaves and fungus-covered roots pulse with unnatural stillness, as if time paused the moment the Erdtree's corruption began to spread downward. In Stormvale Castle, a closer inspection of its worn architecture reveals something interesting: the remnants of older, non-standard masonry. Some walls and foundations appear to be repaired using different styles of stone, suggesting that Stormvale is built atop the ruins of something far more ancient. Certain parts of the castle are inaccessible, but hints of secret rooms, crumbling staircases, and bricked-off passageways suggest the castle may have been expanded multiple times throughout history. Perhaps it wasn't built as a fortress of war, but rather repurposed into one as the tides of power shifted. Have you ever noticed that the stars in the lands between don't move? In most regions, if you look up at the sky, you'll see a fixed pattern of stars and a moon that doesn't shift positions until you reach Nokron. Once the player defeats Radon, a major celestial shift occurs. The stars begin to move again. This suggests that Radon wasn't just a warrior, but a cosmic jailer. His immense gravitational power physically stopped the stars in place, halting the flow of fate itself. With his death, fate resumes, the sky breathes again, and the hidden underground city of Nokron is unlocked, as if the cosmos themselves had been waiting for this release. Speaking of Radon, one of his more subtle quirks lies in his choice of mount. His tiny horse, Leonard, isn't just for comic contrast. Lore suggests that Radon loved Leonard so much that upon mastering gravity magic, he did so just to continue riding his childhood steed, despite having outgrown it physically. That small fact adds immense tenderness to his otherwise brutal character. Even the Star Scourge had someone he cared for. In the Albinoric village, if you linger long enough, you might hear soft weeping in the distance. The first generation of Albinorics, made from artificial life magic, are hunched and frail, but they carry with them stories of rejection and despair. Unlike the second generation, who resemble frogs and roll when they attack, these older Albinorics can barely walk upright. Many of them hold twisted canes or crawl slowly toward you, not out of aggression, but habit. Their village is half submerged in mud, and their only guardian is the often overlooked Omen Killer. The pain of abandonment hangs over this place like fog. On the other hand, the Michaela's Erdtree area holds strange signs of halted progress. The branches of the tree are twisted and sickly, and many of the structures built into it, such as wooden platforms and makeshift bridges, are incomplete, abandoned mid-construction. There are also signs of military occupation, including ballistas and watchtowers. The implication here is that the Erdtree was never finished, an imperfect sanctuary for those rejected by the Golden Order, halted in its attempt to create a new divine order under Miquella. The dream was never realized, leaving only scaffolding and sorrow. Let's talk about the marionette soldiers for a moment. These jerking, awkward puppets, controlled by strings of sorcery, were not always lifeless tools. Some theories suggest they were once living beings who had their minds overwritten. A cruel experiment in obedience. If you examine their helmets and armor, you'll notice traces of identity, different crests, banners, and ornamentation from various regions. This points to the possibility that the puppets are not made, but taken, a chilling implication that the magic animating them may be erasing souls. One easily missed NPC detail involves the merchant Kale, who sits peacefully at the Church of Ella early in the game. If you speak to him long enough and follow his dialogue through various stages, he eventually reveals he's a member of the Nomadic Merchants, a group whose eerie humming and red robes resemble those of ancient fire worshippers. In the subterranean shunning grounds, you can find an entire catacomb of nomadic merchant corpses, locked away and forgotten beneath the capital. Each one clutches a stringed instrument. It's never explained directly, but the suggestion is chilling. Kale may be one of the last of his kind, his brethren buried for crimes or simply for being different. Within Volcano Manor, the architecture and placement of rooms can be puzzling at first. Secret hallways, invisible walls, and oddly long passageways. But if you trace the layout carefully, you'll see it mimics a great serpent winding through the mountain. Rooms and hallways bend and twist in a deliberate pattern, creating a symbolic mirror to the great serpent god Rykard, who devours both his enemies and his followers. The manor isn't just his base, it's his body. You're walking through his soul. If you've ever been to Jarburg, the tranquil little village of living jars tucked beneath Caria Manor, you may have been charmed by its peaceful air. The jars here are unlike others, friendly, curious, innocent. If you sit long enough or return after completing certain quests, you'll find them tending to flowers, sitting together quietly, or humming to themselves. And the village even has a graveyard. These sentient jars are shown placing flowers on the broken remains of their kin, a moment of mourning, hinting at a surprisingly emotional depth. What is grief, if not proof of love? In Ordina Liturgical Town, time itself seems broken. The town exists in two states, physical and spectral. The Evergall version is silent, eerily empty, and filled with ghostly assassins. The statues and structures remain the same, but the foggy filter makes it feel like a dream frozen in place. Ordina's twin-state existence may be a nod to the concept of liminality, places stuck between life and death, function and decay. Even the music is missing. It is a town built on pause, and you can almost hear the silence whispering. When exploring mountaintops of the giants, keep an eye out for frozen corpses buried in the snow. Many of these are not random. They are trolls, the giant kin who once rebelled against the Golden Order. You'll find them slumped against cliffs, half covered in frost, sometimes clutching weapons as if still mid-battle. These are remnants of a forgotten war, their stories erased by snowfall. The silence of the mountains is not peace. It is aftermath. Then there's Seluvis, the puppet master of Caria Manor. His basement hides not just a single puppet, but an entire twisted collection, and many of them resemble NPCs, even ones you may have met. Some fans speculate he was planning to replace people in power with his puppets, effectively controlling politics like a chessboard. He is never shown creating them, but his notes, found in secret, reveal instructions for turning people into obedient husks. It's not magic, it's manipulation. Quiet, horrifying, and always off-screen. In Mogwin Palace, the bloody dynasty of Mog unfolds not through loud exposition, but through symbols. The giant cocoon housing Miquella's body, the ever-dripping blood from the sky, the twisted versions of Albinorix turned into blood slaves. Mog's obsession with Miquella isn't romantic, it's strategic. He wants to steal divinity by uniting their power. But Miquella never wakes. The ritual is paused. The palace is not triumphant. It is a shrine of delusion. And have you ever noticed that finger creepers, those horrifying hand-shaped enemies, tend to appear near areas associated with the two fingers and the greater will? Their twisted, clawed shape mirrors the disfigured remains of divine communication. Their presence may suggest that the divine is not clean or beautiful, but grotesque, that perhaps the will that guides the Erdtree is more alien than it lets on. As we near the end of this first part, imagine standing quietly beneath the Erdtree's shadow, where golden leaves drift gently to the earth. The wind is soft. A spectral deer passes without sound. You're not here to fight, not here to win, just to watch, to breathe, to rest in a world ancient and alive. And when you close your eyes, the lands between wait for you still. As we return to the quiet dream of the lands between, the stillness deepens. There's something uniquely comforting about the world of Elden Ring, not in its danger or difficulty, but in the timelessness it carries. Every crumbled wall, every moss-covered stone, and every echoing whisper of the past reminds us that this is a place far removed from urgency, a place where you can simply observe, wonder, and let the stories come to you like leaves drifting through the air. In Liurnia of the Lakes, one of the more mysterious places is the submerged Gate Town ruins. These structures were once part of a thriving city, likely the original entrance to the Academy of Raya Lucaria. Now, they rest underwater, overtaken by time and stillness. The roads curve in circles beneath the lake's surface, and the broken spires lean gently like sleeping giants. When you ride through the flooded streets, the reflections shimmer in such a way that it almost feels like memory itself is melting, a world submerged in its own forgotten past. Just north of there is the village of the Albinorix, and while we visited their earlier village in the last part, this second one carries different ghosts. Hidden high in the hills, behind an illusion, the village seems to have been attacked and burned. In the darkened forest surrounding it, you may find a spirit, a spectral voice who hums softly, not noticing your presence. She speaks of a medallion, but more importantly, she seems lost in time. Not every spirit in Elden Ring attacks, some just mourn. The Raya Lucaria Academy holds another visual secret. In the Grand Library where Renala waits, if you look closely at the upper shelves, you'll see that most of the books are damaged or empty. The illusion of grandeur remains, but the knowledge has long been stripped away. Some say Renala's obsession with her lost child, her longing for Rani, caused her mind to fracture. Her students still bow to her, still repeat their studies. But the magic they once wielded is flickering, shallow, a grand hall filled with echoes instead of answers. Let's drift for a moment into the dream of Siofra River. Unlike any place above ground, Siofra is lit not by torches, but by stars, or things that look like them. These glowing lights are likely ghost flame wisps, the same cold energy seen in the deathbirds. But here, they don't bring fear. They gently pulse above the grass, like fireflies made of memory. Even the spirits of ancient warriors, the ancestral followers, dance in peaceful circles around their fires. Their culture is lost, but their rituals remain. Watching them feels like glimpsing something sacred, a kindness that has survived ruin. Back above, in Altus Plateau, you'll find the ruined Wyndham Ruins, a crumbling fortress overrun by rotten beasts. But there's more to these walls than first appears. Hidden behind one of the ruins is a sealed cave leading to the sealed tunnel, which in turn connects to the very roots of the Erdtree. This tunnel is not just secret, it's sacred. The markings along its walls are etched in gold, and the enemies within are twisted ancient things, guardians of something long hidden. The idea that sacred truth lies buried in darkness is a recurring theme in Elden Ring. Speaking of buried truth, the Grand Lift of Dectus hides its own stories. Most players focus on the medallion halves needed to activate it, but few notice that the lift itself bears faded carvings depicting scenes of war and conquest. The Dectus lift wasn't just built to move travelers, it was a monument to the power of Landal's empire, a silent reminder that even elevation is political, who gets to rise and who stays below. The wandering mausoleums, those great walking bell towers, are among the most enigmatic sights in the game. Covered in barnacles or skull-like growths, they stomp through the landscape as if on a path only they can see. But their insides, once opened, are surprisingly sparse, just a single altar and silence. These mausoleums are believed to be the walking graves of demigods or champions whose memories are still alive. The bells they carry toll through the lands between, not with warning, but with remembrance, as if the world itself is refusing to forget. In Elphael, Brace of the Erdtree, if you pause near the outer walls, you might spot golden butterflies fluttering near certain trees. These aren't just visual effects. They're tied to crafting rare blessings, but their placement is curious. Butterflies are symbols of transformation, and in this decaying, half-finished city, they gather only near the places where death lingers quietly. Perhaps they represent the souls of those lost in the Erdtree's failure, fluttering near their final resting place, or maybe they're waiting for Miquella's return. There's something tender in the way Miranda flowers attack. These oversized, glowing blooms don't rush or chase. They simply release clouds of sleep-inducing pollen. They're slow, gentle, and strange. According to lore, some were once nurtured by Miquella himself. These aren't enemies in the usual sense. They're part of an ecosystem, living remnants of divine experiments in beauty and peace. Poisonous, yes, but not cruel. They just bloom. If you venture into Celia, town of sorcery, you'll find it locked by glowing seals and filled with invisible paths. But the town's origin reveals something deeper. Celia was once a center for experimentation, a place where forbidden sorceries were explored. The houses remain, but the people are gone, and the stars seem to shine brighter here, as if the heavens themselves remember what was studied. Even the music in Celia is dreamlike, dissonant, a lullaby made of broken chords. Not far from there is the chair crypt of Celia, a haunting place where a single, massive chair sits alone beneath the earth. The implication is never explained, but many believe it was meant for a powerful sorcerer who sought enlightenment in solitude. Or perhaps it was a punishment, a throne for someone whose mind drifted too far from mortal thought. The silence of that room is thick. You can almost hear the past thinking. In Farum Azula, where time is crumbling and dragons circle endlessly, the architecture behaves strangely. Spiral staircases bend impossibly, columns float sideways, gravity seems to ripple, but if you look closely, the statues lining the walls aren't all dragons. Many are human or demi-human, posed in prayer. This suggests that Farum Azula may have once been a temple of balance between beast and man, a place where worship transcended form. Its destruction, then, is not just spatial, but spiritual, a lost attempt at harmony. Did you know that Millennia, Blade of Miquella, is never shown smiling in any depiction? Her statues are always stoic, her lore always tragic. She is defined by her rot, her loss, and her discipline, but the one place you see any hint of tenderness is in her relationship with Miquella. In unused dialogue found in the game files, there are lines where Millennia speaks softly of her brother's dreams, not with duty, but with affection. It's a brief moment, but it changes everything. Behind the armor, there was love. The minor Erdtrees, scattered across the map, often go unnoticed. Players fight the Erdtree avatars and move on, but if you return later, these trees continue to shimmer. Their leaves fall in slow spirals, even when no one is watching. They are, in a sense, the most faithful things in the lands between, still performing their divine role, even when forgotten. Their golden tears, used for crafting, are said to hold memory. Perhaps the trees remember everything, and in Caelid, despite its grotesque rot and chaos, there are surprising signs of life. Flocks of birds still fly across the sky. Wolves rest in ruined camps. Even the stars, faint as they are, flicker above the red fog. Nature endures quietly, even here. As this part closes, imagine standing atop a forgotten tower, watching ghost flame dance across a field of ruins. The wind is cold but gentle. A spectral stag walks the cliff's edge. You hear nothing but breath, yours and the world's. You are small here and safe. The lands between have always whispered more than they shout. The secrets lie in the silence, in the spaces between ruins, and in the half-told stories buried beneath the soil. Tonight, we'll keep wandering through this quiet world where even the enemies sleep standing and the trees remember everything. In the western stretch of Limgrave, there's a small beach south of the starting area. You can reach it by descending a cliffside near the coastal cave. Most players head straight for the boss inside, but if you wait on the beach instead, something remarkable happens. The tide rolls in gently, and the sunlight dances across the waves in a surprisingly realistic shimmer. Crabs scuttle out of the sand, seagulls call overhead. It's not dramatic, it's serene. One of the first quiet moments the game offers you, if you're patient enough to notice. A short distance away, inside the Church of Dragon Communion, you'll find the decayed bones of dragons fused into the walls. The site is sacred, but also deeply eerie. Dragon Communion magic is based on devouring the power of ancient dragons, and some believe that practitioners slowly become more draconic in both body and mind. If you study the spells carefully, you'll see that they begin to emphasize transformation, claw strikes, roars, wings. The communion is not worship, it's consumption. In the Weeping Peninsula, there's a ruined tower known as the Tower of Return. If you step on the strange teleporter at its peak, you'll be sent not forward, but far away, to the edge of the game world, on the outskirts of Lendel, the royal capital. What makes this fascinating is the intentional trickery. You're transported to an area far beyond your level, forced to hide or run instead of fight. It's FromSoftware's way of showing that curiosity brings consequence, but also wonder. The tower doesn't punish you. It teaches you that the world is connected, massive, and ready to surprise. The Knight's cavalry enemies that patrol the roads only appear after dark. They seem fearsome, with black steeds and long halberds. But what's intriguing is how each one behaves differently depending on the region. In Limgrave, the knight is methodical but alone. In Caelid, the pair work in tandem, charging together like a coordinated hunt. The implication is that these were once elite soldiers of some forgotten kingdom, still following their duty long after death. Each patrol route tells a story. If you follow them without engaging, they sometimes stop, waiting, listening, as if searching for something they've lost. Back in Round Table Hold, the central hub of the game, most players interact with the blacksmith, the merchants, the NPC quest givers. But if you sit still in the center of the hall, where the great table burns with ghostly flame, you'll hear a faint hum. The sound design in this area is intentionally subtle. The table doesn't crackle or roar, it whispers, and the flames never move, frozen in time. Some theorize this table exists outside of time entirely, a resting place for lost champions. The name Round Table itself may be symbolic, an eternal return, a place you visit again and again. A lesser-known area called the Four Belfries, found on a cliff in western Lernia, contains a small, haunting detail. Each belfry has a different portal that leads to a specific event or realm, one to a ruined chapel of anticipation, one to Nokron, and one to a crumbling Farum Azula. The idea that these are literal doors to moments scattered across space and time makes the Four Belfries feel like an ancient control station, a place used by an unknown civilization to manipulate fate. It raises questions never answered. Who built them? Why are they abandoned? And why does one belfry hold no portal at all? In Celia Crystal Tunnel, you'll see walls of glittering blue-green rock glowing faintly in the darkness. Most people rush through, dodging enemies and explosions. But if you stop and just watch, you'll see the crystals gently pulsing, reacting to some invisible source of power. The color, size, and placement of these crystals appear in other areas too, like in the subterranean lake of Rot and the crumbling Farum Azula. They may be fragments of the same source, the deep magic of the cosmos that shaped reality itself. Quietly glowing in forgotten corners, these crystals pulse with life, not because they are alive, but because they are remembering. Let's visit Jarbairn for a moment, the small living pot who appears in Jarburg after you've made progress in Iron Fist Alexander's quest. Jarbairn refers to Alexander as Psych Uncle and tells stories of the other Jars like one would speak of family. If you return multiple times, Jarbairn begins to take on responsibilities, sweeping, watching over graves, talking about legacy. The Jars aren't just items, they're people in their own way, people who long for connection. There's something heartbreakingly soft about a small jar wanting to grow up to be like his uncle, even in a world built on ruin. Innocence survives. The finger readers, those old blind women found near grand lifts, often mutter strange things. Many players ignore them. Their speech is cryptic, their movements unsettling, but listen closely, and you'll catch them describing visions of flame, of rot, of children and kings and death unending. These aren't random ramblings, they're prophecies. Some may be describing past events, others, futures that never came to pass. They speak in riddles because they are no longer fully in this world. They stand at the edge of something larger. Their fingers read fate like a book long out of print. In Einsel River, if you take a moment to stand near the abandoned merchant's camp, you'll hear strange whispers. These aren't just ambient noises. They are the voices of the puppets, the whispers of rot, and the echoes of long-dead sorcerers. The river is tied to Ronnie's quest and the lost civilization of the Nox. Some of the statues down here resemble twisted versions of humans with elongated faces and backward bent limbs. They aren't monsters. They're echoes of a time when magic ruled and humanity was malleable. It's a place that feels like a dream, not a nice one, but one you can't look away from. Let's rest a moment in Castle Morn, on the southern edge of the Weeping Peninsula. It's an often missed location, overrun by misbegotten. The lore suggests that the misbegotten were enslaved and mistreated here, eventually rising up in revolt. But there's a quiet tragedy woven in. Leonina Misbegotten, the boss, is alone at the base of the castle, surrounded by graves. He's not angry. He's mourning. The battle already ended. The rebellion is done. He's the last one left, guarding corpses he once called kin. Even the wind here feels heavy. One of the softest moments in the game happens not through lore or combat, but through rest. If you sit at certain sites of grace for long enough, you'll notice your character sometimes breathes deeper. Their shoulders rise and fall more slowly. It's not mechanical, it's atmospheric. The world is encouraging stillness to just be. Not every game rewards doing nothing, but Elden Ring does, in its own quiet way. At the shaded castle, north of Altus Plateau, the green moss that covers everything isn't just an aesthetic choice, it's symbolic. The castle is drenched in poison, rot, and sorrow. The lords who ruled it were forgotten, their bloodlines spoiled. Yet within the decay, flowers bloom, poison blooms, the kind that feed on death and flourish in shadow. There's a beauty here that exists despite the ruin, maybe because of it. In the divine tower of Liurnia, often missed by players, there's no boss, no treasure, just a mirror and an echo of Rani. It's her true body, sleeping and cold. The tower's only purpose is reflection. It forces you to stop, to see that all the plotting, all the fate-twisting decisions you've made come back to this moment. A girl who chose to leave the Golden Order, not for power, but for freedom, and perhaps the most poetic moment of all lies in the weather system. Few players realize just how dynamically the weather changes. Soft rain during tense scenes, fog as you approach forgotten graves, golden sun rays in places of significance. The weather reacts, not like a mechanic, but like a storyteller. It mirrors your emotions. You walk through storms and emerge into light, or vice versa, not because the game changes, but because you do. As this part of the story settles into silence, let the rain fall gently across your thoughts. The lands between doesn't need to be conquered tonight, just understood and remembered. In the slumbering wilds of the lands between, even the rocks seem to listen. Elden Ring is a world where history has turned into landscape, and the past is not just remembered, it's lived in. Every stone bridge, every shattered statue, every trail of glowing guidance from the sites of grace points not just to your next step, but to stories buried just beneath the surface. Let's begin this part in Oriza's Side Tomb, a lesser visited dungeon near Lindell's eastern cliffs. Unlike many tombs, this one uses mirrored rooms and teleporting chests to trick your sense of direction. But it's not just a gimmick, the entire dungeon seems to echo the idea of misremembering, of memory looping in on itself. Enemies you defeat return when you circle back. Objects reappear. It's a space designed to test perception, where the reward is not strength, but understanding. The structure itself tells the story of a people obsessed with order, but trapped in repetition. Nearby, in the Lendell catacombs, a series of roots twist unnaturally into the stonework, and statues once upright have slumped or shattered. These are signs that the Erdtree's influence, once meant to bring divine order, has begun to rot from within. The roots here pulse, not with light, but with a deep, dark color as though infected. This area isn't merely old, it's corrupted. The deeper you go, the more it feels like you're crawling through a divine organism that's long since forgotten its own purpose. Speaking of forgotten places, deep under the mountaintops of the giants, the consecrated snowfield stretches out in silence. It is easy to get lost here. Blizzards hide landmarks, and sound is muffled by the snow. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice faintly glowing markers scattered throughout the terrain. Small trees, broken statues, ancient swords stabbed into the earth like forgotten monuments. These aren't random. They mark battles, boundaries, and resting places. The snowfields is a graveyard the size of a kingdom. At its far edge lies the apostate derelict, a lonely, crumbling church where a giant spectral woman sits still, unmoving. Her name is never given. She says nothing, but she wears a mourning veil, and if you bring the holy light of certain incantations near her, subtle sound cues shift. It's never confirmed, but she may be one of the last giants who remembered the Erdtree's promise. Sitting in silence, still faithful, still waiting. Far from there, in the crimson-scarred wastes of Caelid, one of the most haunting landmarks is the abandoned cave, a place where rot drips from the ceiling and the walls glow with sickly light. Many players visit only to collect the gold scarab talisman, but they might miss the deeper implication. The cave itself is shaped like a scar across the earth. It doesn't feel natural. It feels like something burned its way through. The rot here pulses in rhythm with the ambient soundtrack, like a heartbeat or a warning. Let's shift focus now to the perfume-based warriors found in various regions, especially the perfume enemies in the Altus Plateau. These enemies don't use swords or shields. Instead, they hurl bottles filled with glowing powder. What's unusual is that this isn't treated as magic, it's chemistry. The perfumes are alchemical weapons, and the lore describes them as inspired by the ancient art of fragrance. Even the tools used to apply them are delicate, like something from a luxury ritual. These enemies are deadly, but also refined. It's a reminder that in Elden Ring, even elegance can become a weapon. In the Lake of Rot, time seems to stand still. The slow, Sticky terrain forces players to move deliberately, but if you stop for a while, you might notice something peculiar. The rot glows, not just faintly, but in pulsating rhythms, like the whole lake is alive. In lore, this lake is considered sacred by some followers of Scarlet Rot, a divine ocean of disease. Its shimmer is not just an effect, it's a signal, a living reminder that decay, too, can be worshipped. Further up the timeline of the world's decay lies crumbling Farum Azula. This is where time is literally falling apart. You can see it in the way gravity behaves strangely, or how crumbling towers spin slowly in the sky. But one thing many players miss are the Beastman murals hidden deep within the zone. These murals show ancient rituals, offerings, dances, prayers, not to gods, but to the dragons. The Beastmen here are not just brutes, they're descendants of a forgotten culture that once revered dragons as living gods. Their wildness is ritual, not savagery. A place of peace, by contrast, is found in Bellum Church, a ruined structure that sits quietly above the main path toward the grand lift of Dectus. It doesn't contain enemies, just a broken altar, a few items, and a panoramic view of Liurnia below. The church's placement suggests it was once a holy resting point for pilgrims. Its silence now feels like a sigh, as if even faith needed a place to stop and breathe. In the distant reaches of Mogwyn Palace, blood falls from the sky like eternal rain. But there's one rare sight among the violence. A statue half buried in the rock, its face turned away. It doesn't match any known deity. Some speculate it may be an unfinished monument to Miquella, or even to Mog's idealized version of him. It's strangely unfinished, a symbol of a dream that was never real to begin with. Just obsession carved in stone. A gentle curiosity exists in the walking mausoleums, with bell towers compared to those without. Only the ones with bells allow you to duplicate remembrances, items tied to slain demigods. Those without bells are silent. They walk without purpose. It suggests that even in death, function matters. The world remembers only those who carried weight. The others drift in quiet shame, their bells long since broken. Now let's talk about spirit ashes, those spectral allies you can summon. Each has lore, but if you use them often, you may notice something even more subtle. Some will gesture as they appear, as if recognizing the moment. Others stand slightly closer to you when idle or delay vanishing after a fight. These tiny behaviors aren't explained, but they add emotional weight. Your companions aren't just tools, they're fragments of souls, echoes of warriors who fought once, and now walk again by your side, not out of obligation, but choice. In the Caria Manor, beyond the giant spectral hands and twisting paths, lies a peaceful garden with a single chair placed near a small pond. There's nothing there, no enemy, no treasure, just the sound of water and a clear view of the stars through the manor's broken roof. This small space may be meaningless in terms of gameplay, but it feels meaningful, like someone used to sit there, like someone might again. And in Noxtella, the eternal city hidden far beneath the surface, the architecture glows with eerie turquoise light. The streets are lined with strange silver tears, creatures born of failed experiments. But between the buildings, you can find statues holding strange spheres, perhaps devices, or eggs, or memories. The city may have once had technology that rivaled magic, but it all ended in stillness. The rain here never changes. The silence never breaks. The idea that a place can remember you, even if you don't remember it, is at the core of Elden Ring's design. No pop-ups, no blinking icons, just quiet details waiting to be noticed. Imagine a soft breeze moving through the grasses of Limgrave, golden in the setting sun. A single bird calls in the distance. You are still. The world is still. But in that stillness, 1,000 stories sleep beside you. The lands between is a realm where stories breathe through the scenery and memory seeps from every stone. As we continue our peaceful walk through this myth-soaked world, we uncover not battles or bosses, but soft echoes and forgotten details that hum beneath the surface like a lullaby made of mist and moss. Begin now in Stormvale Castle, not in the main halls where the fight with Godric rages, but in the overgrown courtyards and side paths. Tucked away in a corner is a small, locked door that never opens. Players have speculated for months what lies beyond it. Is it an unused developer area, a sealed room of secrets, or simply an intentional mystery, a space that resists answers? Whatever its purpose, the locked door in Stormvale stands as a symbol of FromSoftware's philosophy, that not every mystery needs resolution. Some doors are meant to remain closed, just to make us wonder. A little farther on, beneath the Erdtree's shade, we find the Cathedral of the Forsaken, deep below Lanedell. This haunting space is filled with roots and rot, and it's here you discover the frenzied flame path. But what many miss is that the area around the cathedral was once richly decorated with golden statues and holy relics, now broken and twisted. The implication is clear. Something sacred was cast away, hidden beneath the capital, buried and disowned, yet the flame remains. It flickers not in triumph, but in endurance. Even madness has memory. If you look up when walking through the royal capital of Lendell, you'll spot strange tree branches weaving through rooftops, crumbling arches, and balconies. These aren't just decorative, they're remnants of a divine infestation. The Erdtree's reach is not gentle. It claws its way into the city like roots cracking through pavement. Some balconies are impassable, overrun with bark. Others house withered corpses holding flowers, suggesting they chose to meet death under the branches they once worshipped. It's peaceful in a bittersweet way, a quiet surrender. In the lands between, statues are never just decoration. Look closely at the ones near Stormhill Shack, and you'll find a kneeling figure with hands pressed together, staring toward the cliffs. Some say this was a lookout, even waiting for their loved one to return from war. Others believe it's a warning, a final prayer before a fall. These small details tell stories that never make it into item descriptions. They're part of the land itself, whispered instead of spoken. Let's rest at Jarburg, that serene little village hidden below Caria Manor. If you sit among the pots long enough, you might notice that their placement isn't random. Larger jars often stand near smaller ones, like parents and children. Some guard flower patches, others rest beside graves. The jars are not just cute, they're a society, one that values community, growth, and remembrance. And despite all the chaos of the outside world, this place remains untouched. Even Elden Ring gives you a pocket of peace. Now let's drift far underground into deep-root depths. Most players stumble here by accident, dropping from twisted branches or following Fia's quest. But if you pause near the base of the Erdtree's roots, you'll see a circle of ghosts kneeling in silent prayer. These aren't enemies, they don't react, they are locked in place worshiping. The roots they pray to are gnarled, cracked, and leaking dark sap, as if even the divine has grown old. Yet the prayer continues. Perhaps it always will. In Celia town of sorcery, amidst the glowing streets and phantom lights, you can find murals of constellations carved into the walls. These weren't put there for beauty. They were used for navigation by astrologers who believed that fate was written in the stars. The Nox people who once lived here shaped their entire society around celestial movement. Their downfall may have come from trying to read too far into the heavens, searching for a future that refused to be seen. There's a place in Altus Plateau, near a cliffside church, where the wind picks up in a unique way. If you stand still, you'll hear soft gusts that sound almost like sighs. The area is littered with broken carriages and banners, as if an army once marched there but vanished. No enemies patrol this road. No NPCs comment on it. But the atmosphere suggests loss, a quiet battlefield where the only thing left is the wind trying to remember. The Albinoric Rise puzzle, found in the consecrated snowfield, asks you to summon fanged imps to fight each other. What's subtle, though, is that the rise is decorated with broken puppet parts, hints that these trials have been running endlessly, long before your arrival. The imps themselves seem bored, sluggish, like they've fought this battle too many times. It's a grim loop, a test that no longer serves a purpose, repeating because no one told it to stop. In the subterranean shunning grounds, beneath Lindell, lies a small cell filled with discarded relics and bent cages. Here you can find a message scrawled by an NPC who gave up. It's not a warning or a riddle. It simply reads, "I can't take it anymore." It's rare for Elden Ring to break the fourth wall with something so direct. But here, in the lowest depths of the world, the honesty feels welcome, like someone left a piece of their truth behind, and it's okay to be tired. Did you know that some animals react to weather in Elden Ring? Birds may fly lower in fog, wolves howl more in rain, turtles retreat under certain lighting conditions. These micro behaviors don't affect gameplay, but they create texture. The world feels alive not just because of its size, but because of its rhythms. Even creatures with no names or health bars obey a system greater than the player, the system of nature. Back above ground in Volcano Manor, if you take time to study the paintings on the walls, you'll see depictions of serpents coiling around divine figures. These aren't blasphemous images, they're devotional. The people here chose to revere the serpent, not out of fear, but admiration. To them, devouring the gods was not sin, it was salvation. And in a world where divine order brought war and rot, maybe they weren't entirely wrong. In Farum Azula, high among the shattered ruins, you can see small shrines shaped like lightning bolts. These are dedications to Placidusax, the dragon god of storms. What's touching is that these shrines are often half broken, grown over, and ignored by the beastmen that roam the area. The old faith is fading piece by piece, but it remains. Even gods, long absent, leave behind footprints in the stones. If you return to Gatefront ruins after defeating Margit and entering Stormvale, you'll find the enemies you once fought there replaced with weaker versions, or sometimes gone entirely. The game quietly suggests that your progress affects the world in small ways. You are not just a traveler, you are a tide. As you pass through, the world rearranges itself behind you, not to serve you, but to adjust. like dust settling after a breeze. Finally, there's a detail in the Deathroot altars, where you offer the roots to Gurunk, the beast clergyman. Each altar is surrounded by skulls, bones, and scratched symbols that resemble tally marks. It's as if someone was counting, not time, but offerings, or maybe victims. The presence of Deathroot in Elden Ring is tied not just to death, but to memory of death, a lingering echo that resists decay. So rest now, among these ruins and reflections. The world continues to turn slowly in the dark, its stories flickering like fireflies in the distance. You've walked far, through forgotten gardens, silent towers, and dreaming rivers, and the lands between still holds more. There's a certain stillness in the lands between that lingers long after you put down the controller. It's not just a game, it's a mood, a hush, a deep breath frozen in time. As we continue our slow journey, we're not chasing glory. We're listening for the soft footsteps of ghosts, for the whisper of forgotten gods, and for the gentle rustle of golden leaves falling through eternity. Let's return to the mountaintops of the giants, where snow crunches underfoot and red-hot sparks swirl in the wind. Amid this harsh land, there's a tiny half-buried church called the First Church of Marika. Unlike most churches in the game, this one has a completely broken roof, and its statue of Marika is leaning forward, almost as if in pain. Inside, you find a sacred tear, but there's no one left to pray with. The snow has claimed everything. The silence here is different, not the peace of a quiet forest, but the hush of a place that's accepted its own end. Near this area is the Forge of the Giants, a colossal bowl carved into the mountain meant to set flame to the Erdtree. But if you circle around the forge instead of rushing in, you'll notice how the snowstorm thins. You can look down into the mountain's heart, an abyss glowing with coals. There's no music here, just the wind, just the gentle roar of a fire that's waiting for something or someone to give it purpose. Now let's descend to Miquella's Erdtree, a place that seems suspended between death and growth. The enemies here, especially the Cleanrot Knights, are leftovers from millennia's wars. Yet they patrol with purpose, guarding a tree that never bloomed. The roots twist outward, half-formed like hands that never quite reach the sun. The Erdtree is beautiful in a broken way, a promise that wasn't kept, a lullaby that stops before the last note. In Ordina Liturgical Town, time itself is frozen. The snow falls, but nothing moves. You walk among the memories of a city that prepared for a grand ritual, but the ritual never came. Ghostly enemies appear only when you enter the Evergale version of the town. They're shadows of soldiers who once lived here, stuck in the same formation, the same patrol paths. They don't remember why they're there. They just continue. That's the tragedy of Ordina, a place of eternal rehearsal for a ceremony that never began. Let's shift south to Liurnia, to a small overlook where a ruined watchtower stands with its top blown open. Inside is an abandoned camp, and if you search carefully, you can find signs of a long-dead battle, bloodstains, broken swords, an old note. There's no reward here, no boss, no marker on your map, just quiet. But if you look out over the lake from that broken tower, you can see the Academy of Raya Lucaria glowing in the distance. The message is quiet but clear. Not every fight is remembered. Not every death gets a name. Some are just whispers on the wind. In the Academy of Raya Lucaria, if you pause in the Grand Library and look at the paintings on the walls, you'll see depictions of a time when sorcery was deeply tied to celestial phenomena, stars, comets, constellations. These images hint that the Academy once studied the heavens as a way to understand the soul, that sorcery was, in its earliest form, spiritual. Over time, this softened, and knowledge became power, power became control, and the stars were forgotten. In Altus Plateau, there's a crumbling house with a single harp leaning against a wall. It doesn't serve any purpose. It can't be played, but its presence speaks volumes. Music once existed here. Maybe the harpist is gone. Maybe they left in a hurry. Or maybe they still wander the world, searching for a place where their song can be heard. In a game so focused on combat and fate, finding something as gentle as a harp feels like a small act of resistance, a note of kindness in a harsh melody. At the far eastern edge of Kyled, hidden in a rot-choked forest, you can find a corpse sitting upright against a tree, holding a tarnished crown. Nearby, dozens of red butterflies swirl in the air. This is a site of ritual, possibly sacrifice, but it's unclear what happened here. The body is not named. The butterflies do not speak, but the crown tells you enough. This was a ruler once, and now the forest wears their legacy like a shroud. Back in Nokron, deep beneath the lands above, you'll sometimes hear the faint echo of bells, even when no bell is present. These aren't glitches, they're ambient memory, the sounds of the eternal city dreaming of itself. The Nox people lived in a world that defied death, but instead of immortality, they found stagnation. And so the bells ring in your ears, like lullabies sung by a city that's forgotten why it sings. One of the softest secrets lies with Rani's rise, where the towers around her become accessible only after key moments in her quest. When the towers unlock, no fanfare plays, no message appears. But inside, you find desks, books, beds, lived-in spaces. Rani's rise isn't just a base, it's a home, and the presence of domesticity, after so much wandering and war, is calming. Even witches, even demigods need somewhere to rest. In the frenzied flame village south of Liurnia, there's a tiny detail that many overlook. One of the buildings contains a doll-like statue with its eyes covered. It resembles Hieta, the blind maiden who follows the flame. Why is it there? Who built it? We may never know. But it adds a layer of mystery to the already unsettling idea of madness as a form of clarity. Perhaps to those touched by frenzy, blindness is not a curse, but protection. Back above ground in Limgrave, there's a tree stump near the dragon-burnt ruins that has deep claw marks carved into it. Dragons haven't landed there in ages, yet the marks are fresh. This stump doesn't lead to a dungeon or boss. It's just there. A place where something powerful passed through and left a sign. Even the smallest landmark in Elden Ring carries weight. A history told not through cutscenes, but through scratches in bark. In the sealed tunnel, a small note reads, "Be wary of liar ahead." There's no NPC nearby, no boss behind the wall. But after hitting the rock wall, it disappears, revealing a hidden room. This moment plays with the player's instincts. Is the note lying about the liar, or telling the truth about a hidden lie? It's not just a puzzle, it's commentary. The game teaches you to question everything, even your own certainty. There's a quiet resting place in Farum Azula, where two beastmen sit near a small fire. They don't attack, they don't speak, they just stare into the flame as if remembering something long lost. You can fight them, of course, but if you don't, They stay there, watching, waiting. Maybe they were once brothers, or priests, or simply tired travelers. Whatever they were, they found peace, if only for a moment. And finally, in Fia's dream, where you face Lich Dragon Fortisex, the arena is surrounded by golden leaves that float upward like reversed snow. This isn't just visual flair, it's symbolic of rebirth, of hope reaching from death. Fortisex, once a guardian of death itself, now rests in that liminal space, not alive, not gone, but dreamed. And when you awaken, the leaves are gone. But for a moment, the world made sense. So now, as this chapter draws to a hush, close your eyes to the flicker of starlight behind your thoughts. Let the golden mist drift through your mind. In Elden Ring, even silence has weight. Even dreams have roots. In the quietest corners of the lands between, where echoes fade and moonlight clings to the stones, there are stories still waiting to be heard. They don't shout. They hum. They shimmer. They flicker like the last coals in a long dead fire. As you rest beneath the weightless stars, let's continue walking through these forgotten places, letting the world of Elden Ring unfold in a soft whisper of memory. There's a curious structure near East Liurnia, a broken bridge with only one end remaining, leading nowhere. If you stand at its edge, you'll see faint shimmer marks on the stones, as if something invisible used to cross there. Some players believe this was once part of a magically hidden path that no longer functions. Others think it's symbolic, the bridge to knowledge that collapsed when Raya Lucaria closed itself off from the world. Whatever its truth, it invites you to imagine what might have been, a path half remembered, half lost. Inside Carrion Study Hall, if you invert the tower using Ronnie's discarded doll, you'll find more than just a mechanical twist. You'll see candles burning upside down, enemies walking on ceilings, and gravity working against instinct. But the deeper truth lies in what's written on the walls, fragments of star charts, astrological notes, and diagrams of constellations. The scholars here weren't just studying the cosmos, they were trying to rewrite it. The inversion is both literal and symbolic, flipping the world to change fate. On the cliffs above See the Water River, you'll find ash-blackened grass and twisted trees. This is the path to Fort Lyad, a structure surrounded by lava-spewing enemies and volcanic rock. But hidden behind it is one of the most peaceful places in the game, Hermit Village, a gentle, misty area where a group of mages once lived. Now only one NPC remains, a ghost of her former self. The village isn't just quiet. It feels sacred, like a forgotten monastery. The flame here is warm, not hostile. You don't want to fight. You just want to sit and listen. In the Erdtree sanctuary, where golden roots wrap around the stone like veins, you'll notice something subtle. Some branches are cracked. Some no longer glow. As you climb higher, the radiance dims. The Erdtree, once the symbol of eternal order, shows signs of age. It's not decaying, not yet, but it's tired. The divine isn't gone, but it no longer shines like it once did. And in that fading, there is quiet beauty. In Altus Plateau, close to the shaded castle, there's a small cliffside cave where two undead soldiers sit beside a cooking fire. They don't notice you at first. One holds a spoon, the other stares blankly. They seem to be sharing a meal, though there's no foods. If you watch long enough, one of them stands, walks a few paces, then returns, looping a memory of routine, a habit formed in life, continuing in death. It's haunting, but not frightening. It's what happens when the soul forgets it's supposed to move on. Deep underground in Mogwin Palace, you can find paintings and blood-soaked murals that depict scenes not of war, but of coronation. Mog doesn't want to destroy the world. He wants to remake it. And in the corners of these murals, hidden among the gore, are figures kneeling, not in fear, but devotion. This is not chaos to them. It is order. Even blood has its religion, and even madness can wear a crown. On the cliff overlooking Stormvale Castle, just outside of Margot's Fog Gate, you'll find a group of soldiers watching the entrance. If you approach slowly, you might hear one of them speaking, not shouting orders, but muttering. He says something about holding the line and protecting the gate. The dialogue fades if you get too close. It's as if he's rehearsing his courage, preparing for a battle he knows he'll lose. That quiet fear, buried in duty, says more than a fight ever could. In Night's sacred ground, deep in Nokron, there's a moment of eerie tranquility, a half-sunken chapel lit only by a single floating silver tear. If you do nothing, the tear simply sways gently, bobbing like a child trying to fall asleep. It's not hostile. It doesn't want anything. It just exists. In a city abandoned by the stars, even magic mourns. Near the Divine Bridge, there's a lift that takes you to a silent rooftop, guarded by a golem. But if you wait after defeating it, the area remains oddly serene. The wind picks up. The golden dust in the air shifts direction. And if you stand long enough, your character gently shifts their stance, breathing, waiting, feeling. The silence here isn't empty, it's reflective, like the moment between a question and its answer. In Lake of Rot shoreside, beneath the ruins of an ancient temple, you can find fossilized creatures trapped in the floor. Some resemble dragons, others human forms twisted by decay. The lake isn't just rot, it's preservation, a memory pool. Every step you take through it stirs something ancient, something that doesn't want to be forgotten. The lake doesn't fight you, it just holds on. Have you ever stood in Round Table Hold and listened to the ambient music? It's slow, hollow, almost like a hymn with no lyrics. If you close your eyes, you might notice that certain rooms have slightly different acoustic tones. The blacksmith's room has a lower hum. The dining hall echoes softer. These details are subtle, almost imperceptible, but they create a sense of place, of permanence, as if you're not just visiting, but belonging. In Dragonbarrow, far northeast of Caelid, there's a collapsed watchtower with nothing inside. But if you wait until nightfall, a deathrite bird appears just outside. It's easy to miss. There's no hint, no foreshadowing. The game assumes you'll discover it by accident, and if you do, the surprise feels earned. The lesson? Some truths only appear in darkness, and some monsters only come to those who watch the moon. At Castle Sol, after defeating Commander Nile, the silence is deafening. The blizzards still swirl, but the tension is gone. Explore the upper levels, and you'll find armor sets neatly arranged, as if someone had planned to wear them. Letters unread, beds unmade. Castle Sol feels like a base frozen mid-breath, a garrison waiting for orders that never came. And finally, let's return to the Erdtree, not its heart, but its shadow, the places it touches without touching. Throughout the lands between, you'll find shadows that curve even when no object blocks the light. Sometimes they stretch in strange directions. Sometimes they shimmer with faint gold. These aren't bugs, they're hints. The Erdtree's presence distorts even the laws of light, because it's not just a tree, it's a memory, one so strong, even the sun bends around it. So let your thoughts drift like leaves caught in slow wind. The lands between doesn't demand attention, it invites it, not with sound, but with silence, not with force, but with presence. The story isn't finished, but for now it rests. Drifting gently now into the quieter depths of the lands between, we return to the overlooked, the unspoken, and the things left unsaid. This is a place not only of battles and destiny, but of lullabies lost to time, of soft echoes through ruins, and of truths hidden in stone and starlight. Each step you take now isn't toward a goal, it's through a memory. In Weeping Peninsula, the warm sunset hue seems endless, casting gold across the cliffs and fields. One spot often missed is a destroyed wagon near the Castle Morn rampart, its wheels broken and its cargo spilled. The cargo, if examined, contains rusted weapons and broken dolls. Dolls in Elden Ring are more than decoration. They often represent loss or longing, sometimes even cursed memories given form. The fact that they were being transported among weapons suggests something quietly heartbreaking. A merchant trying to save more than just gold, perhaps trying to save someone else's memory. South of the Fourth Church of Marika, along a quiet beach, there's a stranded jellyfish. It doesn't attack, it simply floats, slightly away from the others. The jellyfish in Elden Ring are often connected to the afterlife, especially to the two sisters, Aurelia and Aureliette. This lone creature, isolated, may be another soul separated from its twin. Its calm, drifting rhythm feels less like a warning and more like a lullaby. Some players choose to sit with it, just sit, or no fighting, just presence. In Volcano Manor, above the molten caverns and below the aristocratic halls, there's a rare statue of a serpent with human hands covering its eyes. It appears only once. The hands are feminine, with rings still on the fingers, and the serpent doesn't hiss or bare fangs. It looks almost ashamed. No lore directly explains this statue, but some speculate it's a forgotten representation of Rykard's original followers, people who looked away as their faith transformed into monstrosity. The statue hides nothing. It mourns what was seen. Among the ruins of Celia Hideaway, a secret crystal cave, you may find strange geometric crystal growths, not jagged like normal, but smoothed, shaped like teardrops. These teardrops glow when hit, and although they seem to be environmental decoration, they pulse softly to the music in the cave. There is no confirmation of their purpose, but they seem to harmonize with the magic of the place. Perhaps even the stones remember the rhythm of the stars. In Raya Lucaria, there's an optional rooftop area where you can find a group of marionette soldiers frozen in a circle. They are not active, they do not attack. They kneel around an empty pedestal, hands raised. There is no item there, no description. They are stuck in mid-prayer. But to what? Their creator? The moon? The academy itself? It's a frozen moment, like a memory caught between thoughts. In Altus Plateau, near a destroyed caravan guarded by perfumers, you may find a golden book burned at the edges. It doesn't open. You can't read it. But its placement near incense braziers and potion bottles suggests it once contained alchemical recipes, perhaps sacred perfumes once meant for healing, or rituals. What matters is that someone once believed enough in this book to protect it. And now, even scorched, it remains, because memory, like fragrance, lingers long after the fire dies. On the cliff south of minor Erdtree, Altus, there's a small stone bench placed at the perfect angle to watch the tree. Just a bench, nothing else. In a game where items are everywhere and landmarks lead to secrets, a simple bench can be a gift, a place of reflection, perhaps a shrine for someone who once loved the Erdtree, not as a god, but simply as a beautiful thing. High above Lendell, in a secret balcony you reach by climbing twisted roots and forgotten rooftops, there's a tiny grave marked only by a rusted spear stuck into the stone. No enemies guard it, no treasure rewards it. But around it, golden leaves drift unnaturally slowly, as if time itself moves differently here. The grave has no name, but it doesn't need one. In Elden Ring, some memories are too deep to be labeled. Let's travel to Deeproot Depths again. There's an area beneath the broken canopy where you can see sunlight filtering through roots, despite being far underground. It's not a lighting bug, it's deliberate. The light doesn't come from the Erdtree. It comes from something older, deeper, possibly a memory of light, or a remnant of the one great. Either way, it casts a gentle glow across the soil, enough to make it feel warm despite the decay. In the Grand Cloister, past rivers of rot and temples filled with husks, there is a narrow path where statues hold offerings. Some hold books, some hold bones, some hold nothing at all. The variation isn't random. It represents different kinds of devotion: the faith of knowledge, the faith of sacrifice, the faith of silence. You're not meant to fight here. You're meant to pass through, seen but untouched, like a traveler moving quietly through a dreaming temple. In Miquella's Haligtree, the stained glass windows are shaped like blooming flowers, but the glass is colorless, transparent. It's as if the bloom never happened. The tree itself is hollow. The buds are frozen. Miquella, the most promising Empyrean, is absent. Everything here is in pause, an offering that never bloomed, a prayer that was never answered. Even the architecture mourns him. In Farum Azula, among the floating debris and spiraling ruins, there are occasional broken staircases that lead nowhere. Some are only a few steps. Some spiral into the air, suspended with no destination. Players often rush past them, but if you stand at the top, the wind changes, the ruins hum. It's almost as if these stairs once led to something that's no longer there, not because it was destroyed, but because it was forgotten. In Seofra River, near a waterfall, you can find a set of 3 turtles stacked on each other, like a totem. They don't move, they aren't tied to a quest, but their presence is curious, possibly a hidden nod to the idea of world turtles from mythology, or simply a developer's quiet joke. Regardless, the scene is oddly calming. The turtles rest, so can you. Just outside the shack of the Lofty, in the mountaintops, a single tree grows sideways from a rock. It should not live there. The wind is too harsh, the ground too thin, but it persists, though small and stubborn, branches raised to the sky. Sometimes you find glowing butterflies resting on it, a natural shrine, a symbol of resilience, or maybe defiance, in a world of divine decay. In Castle Sol, hidden behind a wall is a room filled with broken weapons mounted on display. None can be used, none sparkle, but every weapon shows signs of ritual. They were placed there with care, not thrown. A shrine to old soldiers, perhaps, or a trophy room for battles that no longer matter. Either way, it's quiet in there, like a museum no one visits anymore. At the bottom of Lake Agil, after all the dragons are gone and the noise has faded, if you return at night, soft music plays, not battle drums or tension chords, a gentle hum, barely there. Some players never hear it, but if you do, it's unmistakable. A lullaby of the land remembering what it once was before fire, before ash, just water and sky and sleep. So rest now. You've wandered far, through ruins and whispers, through snowfields and rot, through silent altars and glowing trees. The world hasn't run out of stories. It's simply waiting for you to listen. As we near the end of our tranquil walk through the lands between, the quiet places begin to feel like home. The world is no longer strange or threatening. It's familiar, like a memory you didn't know you had, finally returning. And though the fires may burn and the skies may split, tonight all is still. Let's keep wandering, not for purpose, but for peace. In Caria Manor, up in northwest Liurnia, the hand-shaped spirits that crawl along its walls are terrifying at first glance, but there's a secret about them few notice. Near the manor gates, if you look closely, one of the giant hand corpses has small, child-sized hands clinging to its fingers. They're not moving. They're not active enemies. It's as if these creatures once reproduced, or perhaps clung to one another like a family. Horrific in form, yes, but possibly once bonded by something other than malice. A twisted form of kinship, now forgotten. In the Church of the Cuckoo, deep within Raya Lucaria, there's a sunken chapel with flowers growing through its cracked marble. You'll find these same flowers in a few other places, tied to rebirth and memory. Some believe they grow where powerful emotion was felt: love, loss, longing. The church, though broken, doesn't feel abandoned. It feels mourned, as if someone comes back to remember it, even if only in spirit. Along the roads of Altus Plateau, you'll pass old siege towers and wagons shattered by time. Near one of them is a small sketchbook. You can't open it. It doesn't have item text, but it rests beside the body of a messenger, and around it, paper scraps flutter in the wind. One piece shows a drawing of a castle wall, another a sun. Perhaps this was a soldier who sketched what he saw between battles, a quiet act of humanity in a brutal world. At the edges of Mogwin Palace, there are tiny alcoves that house statues of cloaked figures with their backs turned. They face the rock walls, not the blood-red skies. Some players believe these were priests in exile. Others think they turned their backs to Mogwin's madness in silent protest. They don't move, they don't attack, but their posture tells a story. Sometimes, defiance is quiet. In Liurnia of the Lakes, on a small cliff island, far from any map marker, there's a broken bench facing the water. Sit there long enough, and jellyfish may appear in the distance, gently bobbing. The game never points this out. There's no achievement, no reward, just the soft movement of translucent creatures under moonlight. It's the kind of moment that feels like a sigh. In consecrated snowfield, you may stumble across stone pillars that don't mark graves. They're too narrow. Instead, they resemble old waypoints, possibly used before the shattering to mark travel routes, but they're nearly buried now, and the carvings have faded. When seen from above, they trace the outline of a forgotten path, one that leads nowhere now. Even the roads in Elden Ring carry memories of destinations no longer reachable. Inside Lendel, at Ashen Capital, after the burning of the Erdtree, many of the previously golden areas are coated in gray. But if you revisit one specific hallway, Near the base of the tree, a flower has bloomed in the ash. It's small, it's fragile, and you can't interact with it. But it's there. Amid the ruin, something grew. The world is not ending, it's just changing. In Round Table Holds, in the hallway where Dee's brother once slept, if you return later in the game, you'll hear distant whispering. It's almost inaudible. Players who've isolated the sound files say it's not words, just breaths, like someone dreaming. It may be leftover ambiance, or it may be the game gently reminding you that not all spirits leave when their time is done. In Ainsel River, if you stand near the stone coffins by the water, you might notice a strange current pattern. The water flows backward. This defies all logic. Some say it's a bug. Others believe the river itself rejects the flow of time. This is where Ronnie hides, where spirits linger. Maybe the current isn't broken. Maybe it's just remembering. Beneath Stormvale Castle, in the hidden roots and tunnels, you can find nests made of fabric and straw. They're too large for birds, but too small for any known creature in the game. Some fans believe these were makeshift resting spots for servants or outcasts. Others believe they were made by someone hiding, someone scared. Either way, they suggest a life lived in the margins, away from the light. If you head back to the first step site of Grace, after defeating Godric and activating the Grand Lift, you'll notice the sunlight there changes. It's brighter, slightly warmer. The enemies return, but they're slower. It's not a technical change, it's atmospheric. The world subtly reflects your progress. The air feels lighter. You've begun to leave a mark. In Noxtella, Eternal City, there's a long bridge guarded by silver tiers. At the end sits a single stone chair. It's empty, but flowers bloom around it, as if someone important once sat there. Perhaps a queen, perhaps a god, or perhaps no one at all. Maybe the world simply hoped someone would. Sometimes a throne doesn't represent power. It represents hope. In the Windmill Village, the villagers dance in endless circles, unaware of your presence. But behind one of the houses, there's a wall of paintings, faces, hands, and flame motifs. None of them look finished. Some are scratched out. It's as if the artist began to remember something, then tried to forget. Even in madness, there are moments of lucidity, and sometimes they leave art behind. In Deep Root Depths, near Fia's Champions, you'll find roots shaped into unnatural angles, twisted like thorns or skeletal fingers. One root has a series of stone masks embedded in it. The masks don't belong to any known faction. They're all different, faces trapped in wood. Some say these are memories of those lost to Deathroot, devoured not in body, but in name, a root system that remembers too much. And finally, high above it all, in the places where your camera can barely follow, mountaintops, cliff edges, floating islands in Farum Azula, the skybox continues to shift. Stars twinkle in real time. Comets move slowly across hours of gameplay. They aren't background noise. They're real, tracked, timed. Elden Ring's world doesn't just feel alive. It is alive, moving, breathing, dreaming along with you. So as you close your eyes now and drift deeper into sleep, know that the lands between is still there, vast and quiet, glowing softly in the dark. You've uncovered much, and still there's more. But for now, let the whispers settle, let the golden light dim, and let your thoughts drift like stardust over ruins. The journey through the lands between draws near its end, not in fire nor in blood, but in stillness. And here at the edge of memory, where golden dust fades into stars and ancient roots unwrap around the world's forgotten corners, we sit one last time, not to fight, not to question, but simply to listen. In the fringe folk hero's grave, at the very start of the game, many players ignore the ghostly remains lining the tunnel. They're more concerned with traps and chariots. But if you pause and look at the spectral warriors, they aren't scattered randomly. They kneel in lines, in formation, heads bowed. Perhaps they were pilgrims or failed champions, still offering respect to something beyond. The grave isn't a punishment. It's a test of humility. Deep in Mogwin Palace, near the blood-drenched mausoleums, you can find scribbled messages on walls written in player text, but some seem strangely out of place. They're not Mamo messages or standard warnings. A few simply say things like, "He waits," or "I'm sorry, brother." Whether written by players or cleverly placed by developers, they blend into the lore. Elden Ring invites you to leave behind words, to echo your presence into other worlds. And in a land where even the gods bleed, those messages become candles in the dark. In Jarburg, the kindest place in the game, there's a small pot who can be heard saying, "Please don't break me." He doesn't fight. He doesn't flee. He just wants to tend his garden. The jars there are fragile, but not hostile. And if you listen closely, they hum to themselves. Not words, just tones, like a lullaby remembered from childhood. It's easy to rush past, but if you stop, it becomes home. At the edge of Caelid, near the smoldering wall, you'll find a cluster of burned trees. Not unusual, Caelid is full of flame, but beneath one of the trees is a perfectly intact wooden flute. You can't interact with it. There's no prompt, but the placement is too deliberate to be random. Someone played music here once, a gentle act in a violent land, and even after fire the music remains. In Liurnia, on a small platform behind a ruined bell tower, there's a lone glintstone snail. It doesn't summon enemies like others do. It doesn't glow. It just rests. The snail's shell is cracked, and near it lies a tiny satchel. Inside is a cracked rune. It gives few runes, but the implication is heavy. This was someone's familiar, and now it waits, unaware that its master is long gone. In Siofra River, under the starlit canopy, a broken pillar leans against the cliffside, etched with carvings of deer and fireflies. These animals are not enemies in this part of the world. They are guides, gentle spirits. One carving shows a deer being led by stars into the water. A funeral procession, perhaps, or a wish. The ambient music swells here more than most places, because the game knows. This place was sacred. Beneath the great lift of Dectus, if you jump carefully and explore the cliffs, you'll find remnants of an older lift system. Wooden planks, broken gears, rusted chains. This suggests that the current mechanism was built atop something more primitive. Progress in Elden Ring often buries the past, but the past leaves fingerprints. Even in metal, even in stone, the memory lingers. At Divine Tower of East Altus, near the edge of the platform, golden tree sap clings to the walls like tears. It can't be collected. It has no item text. But the sap only appears near statues of Marika, as if the Erdtree itself is weeping. Not in grief, not in rage, just sorrow. The divine can feel, and in silence, sometimes, they mourn. At the edge of the mountaintops of the giants, there's a quiet cave with no enemies, just a mural of an eye surrounded by flame. You can't reach the mural directly, but from a distance, with the right torch equipped, the flame reflects in the eye like it's alive. This visual trick has no explanation. It may not even be intentional, but for those who see it, it sticks, a flame that sees you back. In Ordina, if you light all 4 torches in the Evergoal and defeat the enemies, the spectral town flickers. Only once, just a blink. But in that instant, some players report seeing extra figures on balconies. Children, elders, a crowd. The game never acknowledges this. It may be a rendering glitch, or it may be a final memory, surfacing like a dream. For 1 second, Ordina breathes again. If you return to Stormhill Shack after advancing Roderica's questline, you'll notice the flowers there have grown. The ash in the air is lighter. It's one of the only places in the game where things improve. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a whisper of hope. Even in a cursed world, kindness has roots. In Farum Azula, the swirling debris sometimes forms familiar shapes. A pillar, a sword, a spiral. If you stare at the sky long enough, the clouds seem to repeat themselves. Some think this is a representation of time looping, of a world refusing to let go. Farum Azula doesn't just float through space, it floats through remembrance. And finally, in the arena where you fight Malekith, after his defeat, golden light floods in from above. But if you return later, that light is gone. The Erdtree no longer reaches here, but the wind remains, soft, cold, and constant. It carries no message, but it touches everything. It says only this: it's over. So rest, Tarnished. You've walked far. You've remembered more than most. You've listened to the softest parts of a world so often filled with noise. And now, as you drift off, know that the lands between still turns. Its roots still stretch. Its stars still sing. But for tonight, it waits. Sleep well.